Nobody expected much from boys like Malik Cross and Eli Turner. In Ashbury Heights, poverty wasn't temporary. It lived in the walls, in the leaking ceilings, the mold behind the bathroom sink, the roaches scattering when kitchen lights came on. Most nights, the sirens showed up before the streetlights did. People learned early not to ask questions around there, especially about the women living in Building 14. Everybody knew their names. Everybody knew what they were. Junkies, deal runners, women who disappeared for days and came back looking worse every time. Malik and Eli heard the whispers their whole childhoods. Crack babies, trash kids, future inmates. The neighborhood had a name for boys like them long before they ever became dangerous. The strange thing was, the boys themselves were nothing alike. Malik Cross barely talked unless he had something worth saying. Even as a kid, he watched people carefully, like he was studying them. Teachers thought he was slow at first, until they realized he noticed everything. Every lie, every look, every fake smile adults used when they felt sorry for him. Eli Turner was different. Eli fought like a dog chained too long. Fast temper, fast hands, always angry at somebody. Sometimes because kids laughed at his mother. Sometimes because grown men shoved him aside like he didn't matter. Most times, he just looked like he had been born mad at the world. But if there was one thing everybody in Ashbury Heights understood, it was this. If you touched Malik, Eli Turner would come for you. And if Eli got himself into trouble, Malik would be standing right beside him when it happened. That was the thing about boys who grew up abandoned. They recognized each other. The two of them stole food together, got chased out of corner stores together, learned which apartments kept their doors unlocked during winter. By 12 years old, they already knew how to survive better than most grown men. And somehow, that still wasn't the worst part of their story. People in Ashbury Heights liked pretending the women in Building 14 had always been monsters. That made the neighborhood sleep easier at night. Because if addiction could turn decent people into ghosts, then nobody down there was really safe. Malik's mother used to braid his hair while old soul music played through the apartment on Sunday mornings. Eli's mother used to leave little notes in his lunchbox before school. Tiny things. Love you. Be good. See you after class. Back then, they still looked healthy. Still laughed loud. Still opened windows during summer. Still talked about getting out of Ashbury Heights one day. But poverty has a way of introducing people to things they should have never met. And drugs never arrive all at once. First it was pills, something to numb exhaustion, something to quiet anxiety, something to make bad days disappear for a few hours. Then came harder things, stronger things. Soon the women started disappearing for entire weekends. Then rent money disappeared. Then groceries, then furniture. The apartments changed with them. Walls stained yellow from cigarettes, roaches gathering beneath sinks, ashtrays overflowing beside unpaid bills. Some nights, Malik and Eli ate instant noodles in dark kitchens while their mothers argued with men they barely knew. Other nights, there wasn't food at all. The boys learned early how addiction rewrites people. You stop recognizing voices first, then eyes, then eventually the person themselves. By the time Malik turned 12, his mother barely looked him in the face anymore. Eli's mother cried constantly when she thought nobody could hear her. Sometimes she'd hold him too tightly, like she already knew she was losing him. Ashbury Heights had dozens of women like them. Women swallowed whole by survival. Women who started making smaller and smaller compromises until eventually there was nothing left to compromise. The robberies started after that. Nothing professional. Nothing planned well. Drug dealers getting lined up. Drunks getting followed home from bars. Men promised a good time inside apartments that smelled like smoke and mold. Then suddenly, 3 men would come out of the back room demanding wallets and watches. Quick money, fast money, desperate money. Most victims were too embarrassed to even call police afterward. That's how people like them survived. Through shame, through silence, through neighborhoods already too broken to care. Then came the night that changed everything. Rainy Thursday, cold enough to see breath through the alleyways. The man arrived just after midnight, middle-aged, wedding ring, already drunk before he even entered the building. Malik and Eli saw him briefly from the stairwell upstairs. Neither boy understood what was happening yet. They just knew another stranger had walked into apartment 14B, and strangers almost never meant anything good. Inside the apartment, the women played their roles perfectly. Soft smiles, fake laughter, cheap liquor poured into plastic cups. The man relaxed quickly. That was the problem. Because the men waiting in the back room that night weren't supposed to be there. Not those men. Not armed. Not angry. The robbery was supposed to scare him. Take the wallet. Take the watch. Send him home humiliated. That was it. But desperate people panic fast. Especially addicts. Especially men carrying guns. The victim fought back. Chair overturned. Bottle shattered. Everybody screaming at once. Then somebody pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the apartment like a bomb. For 1 second, everything went quiet. The man collapsed beside the couch, clutching his throat. Blood spreading across dirty carpet.
Oh my God!
Trying to breathe through a wound no human being survives. Malik heard screaming downstairs. Eli heard one of the men yelling, "We gotta go!" The women stood there frozen, staring at what survival had finally turned them into. Not killers, but something close enough. Because once that gun went off, their lives stopped belonging to them. And deep down, they both knew it. The rain still hadn't stopped when the state finally took the boys away. Malik remembered the cold first, the kind that soaked through clothing and settled into your bones. A social worker walked both boys through the parking lot while police lights painted the puddles red and blue behind them. Nobody explained anything properly. Adults rarely do when children are involved. Eli kept looking back toward the apartment building, waiting for his mother to come running outside, waiting for somebody to say it was all a mistake. But nobody came. The hallway lights inside Building 14 still flickered behind the police tape. Neighbors watched silently from balconies above, some pretending to care, some pretending not to stare. Malik never looked back at all. He just kept walking through the rain with his hood over his head. Quiet, emotionally gone somewhere nobody else could reach. That was the night reality finally reached the women too. Not when the gun went off, not when the police arrived, not even when the handcuffs closed around their wrists. It happened later, inside separate holding cells beneath fluorescent lights that buzzed loud enough to drive people insane. That's when the shock wore off, and the consequences finally became real. Malik's mother sat alone on the steel bench, staring at dried blood near the sleeve of her sweatshirt. Her mascara smeared, hands trembling slightly. For the first time in years, she was sober long enough to fully understand what she had done to her son. Not just the robbery, everything. The drugs, the chaos, the men in and out of the apartment, the nights he went hungry, the years she kept promising things would get better. And now, he was gone. Eli's mother handled it differently. She broke fast, cried until her voice turned raw. could barely breathe between panic attacks, kept begging officers for one phone call after another, not to lawyers, to Eli. She just wanted to hear his voice one more time before the system swallowed him too. But juvenile services had already moved the boys before sunrise. The women never got to say goodbye properly. That part haunted them more than prison ever would. Days turned into court appearances, county transport vans, chains around wrists, orange uniforms replacing what little dignity they still had left. Everything moved quickly after that. Too quickly. Public defenders overloaded with cases, prosecutors looking for easy convictions, judges trying to clear crowded dockets. The women learned fast that poor people don't really receive justice. They receive processing. The state painted them as predators, career criminals, dangerous women who lured innocent men into traps. And maybe parts of that were true. But nobody inside that courtroom talked about addiction, or poverty, or what desperation does to people buried alive inside neighborhoods like Ashbury Heights. The trial itself barely lasted long. Most of the damage had already been done the night the body hit the floor. Accessory to felony murder, 20 years. 20. The number echoed through the courtroom like a funeral bell. Malik's mother collapsed into tears immediately. Not loud, not dramatic, just completely broken. Like her body finally gave up pretending it could survive reality anymore. Eli's mother sat frozen beside her attorney, staring toward the courtroom gallery where her son should have been sitting. But he wasn't there. Neither boy came to sentencing. The state considered it emotionally inappropriate for minors. Truth was, the system had already started erasing them from each other's lives. As deputies escorted the women back toward holding cells, both mothers looked back one last time, not at the judge, not at the prosecutors, at the empty courtroom doors, still hoping somehow their boys would walk through them. But they never did. The group home sat nearly 40 minutes outside the city. Old county building, dead grass, chain-link fences, buzzing fluorescent lights that never fully turned off. Most kids passed through there quietly. Some stayed weeks, some stayed years. Nobody unpacked emotionally because nobody expected permanence. Especially not kids like Malik and Eli Turner. The boys adapted fast. That's what survival teaches you. Keep your head down, learn the routines. Don't trust anybody too quickly. Malik spent most nights reading whatever books he could find in the recreation room, watching people carefully, studying staff, studying kids, studying weakness. Eli handled the place differently. He fought often, not because he enjoyed violence, because anger had become the only thing that still made him feel in control. But even inside that place, the boys stayed together. Always. Same lunch table, same hallway, same corner during rec time. The staff learned quickly that separating them only made things worse. Then one afternoon, everything changed again. A pastor named Daniel Whitmore arrived at the group home with his wife Rebecca. They looked nothing like the people Malik and Eli grew up around. Clean clothes, gentle smiles, calm voices, the kind of adults who smelled like laundry detergent instead of cigarette smoke. Rebecca spoke softly. Daniel spoke like every sentence had already been rehearsed inside a church mirror somewhere. The group home staff loved them immediately. Couple from a respected church, no children of their own, large home, private school opportunities. To the system, they looked perfect. And maybe that was the problem. For the first time in years, the boys experienced something close to normal life. Real beds, hot meals every night, quiet neighborhoods without sirens, no screaming through apartment walls, no addicts fighting in hallways, No police lights outside bedroom windows at 3 in the morning. The Whitmore home almost didn't feel real. Clean white walls, family dinners, morning prayer before school. Rebecca tried hard to make the boys feel welcome. And honestly, for a little while, it worked. The private school was harder. Kids there could smell poverty on people. Not literally, but close enough. Malik stayed quiet and observant like always, watching rich kids complain about problems that didn't even sound real. Eli hated the place immediately. The uniforms, the fake smiles, the way teachers looked at him like they were waiting for him to fail. Still, the boys started settling into routine. And routine can be dangerous when you've spent your whole life surviving chaos, because eventually you start believing peace might actually last. Malik noticed the changes first. Little things. Pastor Whitmore lingering too long during conversations. Overly personal questions. The way his attention toward the boys slowly stopped feeling fatherly. Eli noticed too, but Eli trusted anger more than instinct. So instead of talking about it, he buried it. The house changed after that, subtly at first. Rebecca working later shifts at the church office. The pastor spending more time alone around the boys. Long, uncomfortable silences. The kind that make your skin feel wrong before your brain fully understands why. Then came the night everything finally shattered. Heavy rain outside, power flickering through the neighborhood. Rebecca gone overnight, helping with some church retreat several counties away. Only the pastor home with the boys. Malik woke up first. He heard arguing downstairs, low voices, furniture shifting, then Eli yelling, not scared, angry. By the time Malik reached the hallway, everything had already exploded into violence. Eli fighting the pastor near the living room, lamp shattered across floor, furniture overturned. The pastor screaming while Eli beat him with years of buried rage, finally pouring out all at once. Malik didn't hesitate. He jumped in immediately, not because he fully understood everything yet, because Eli was his brother, and brothers survive together. The boys ran before sunrise, still wearing bloodied school uniforms beneath rain jackets. No bags, no plan, no destination, just instinct. And somewhere behind them, another version of normal life collapsed into pieces. One more home, one more set of adults, one more reminder that every safe place in their lives eventually turned dangerous. By morning, Malik Cross and Eli Turner belonged to the streets again. The streets welcomed Malik and Eli back like they had never left. Cold sidewalks, bus stations, abandoned buildings with broken windows covered by plywood and graffiti. Nobody asked questions when teenagers disappeared in neighborhoods like that, and nobody cared where they slept. The boys survived however they could, stealing food from corner stores, sleeping inside makeshift homeless camps beneath overpasses, running from police whenever patrol cars slowed near them. Some nights they slept beside burn barrels with addicts and runaways. Other nights, they didn't sleep at all. The city hardened them quickly. Eli grew meaner, Malik grew colder, and eventually, survival stopped feeling wrong. It just became routine. That's how they met Jughead. Real name didn't matter anymore. Nobody even remembered it. People just called him Jughead because his head looked carved out of concrete. Huge man, muscular, old prison tattoos crawling up his neck, heavy beard streaked with grey, eyes completely dead. Jughead ran a street gang called the Black Heart Kings. Drug corners, robberies, car theft rings, protection money. Everything dirty in that section of the city eventually touched his hands somehow. The boys first crossed paths with him trying to rob food from one of his restaurants. Small soul food spot near the projects. Malik distracted the cashier. Eli grabbed cash from back office. Simple plan, should have worked. Instead, they got caught in the alley behind the building by 4 Blackheart Kings. The beating was brutal. Boots, concrete, blood running into rainwater. Jughead watched the entire thing, smoking calmly beside black SUV. Then finally, he stopped his men. Not because he pitied them, because he saw potential. Young, fearless, angry. Exactly the kind of boys gangs turn into soldiers. Jughead gave them a choice: join the Blackheart Kings or disappear into the streets until somebody eventually killed them for free. Truth was, it wasn't really a choice at all. The boys started running with the gang within days, selling drugs on corners, stealing cars, robbing stash houses, fighting rival crews in abandoned apartment complexes. The streets started learning their names. Malik became known for thinking 3 moves ahead. Eli became known because he genuinely didn't fear violence anymore. And money changes people fast when they've spent their whole life starving. New clothes, cash in pockets, girls suddenly paying attention. For the first time, the boys felt powerful, dangerous, respected. But gangs don't build families, they build weapons. And eventually, Jughead wanted to see just how far his weapons were willing to go. The target was a rival gang leader living across the river. Jughead wanted the entire house burned. Women, children, everybody inside. Even some Blackheart Kings looked uncomfortable hearing the order. But nobody questioned Jughead openly. Nobody except Malik and Eli. The boys drove toward the house near midnight, carrying gasoline and masks. And somewhere during that drive, they realized there was still a line inside them they couldn't cross. So instead of carrying out the hit, they warned the family, told them to run, told them to disappear before Jughead's men arrived. And for one brief moment, Malik thought maybe they got away with it. They didn't. Jughead found out by sunrise, and Jughead believed betrayal deserved spectacle. The boys were grabbed that same night, hands tied, faces beaten bloody, thrown into trunk of black sedan while Blackheart Kings laughed outside. Deep woods several counties outside the city. No witnesses, no cameras, no consequences. Jughead tortured them for hours, not for information, for punishment, for disrespect. Then finally, he put bullets into both boys and left them bleeding in the dirt beneath cold moonlight. Jughead didn't bother hiding the bodies. People like Malik and Eli disappeared every day. The city barely noticed. The boys lay beside each other, bleeding out slowly beneath the trees. Breathing getting weaker, vision fading darker by the second. Malik grabbed Eli's hand first. "I love you, brother." Eli squeezed his hand weakly back. "I love you too." Then, footsteps. Slow, calm, almost elegant. The boys thought Jughead came back to finish the job. But the voice that emerged from the darkness sounded almost amused. "You boys look like you could use some help." The man stepped from the shadows, dressed entirely in black. Perfect suit, black gloves, dark shades despite the night, handsome smile. But something about him felt deeply wrong, ancient. The air around the man felt wrong. Not cold, not hot, just unnatural. Like the woods themselves were holding their breath around him. The stranger crouched beside the boys calmly while rain fell through the trees overhead. Perfect black suit untouched by mud. Dark gloves, black shades, sharp smile that never quite reached his eyes. And somehow, he already knew exactly who they were. Eli Turner. Malik Cross. Abandoned by your mothers. Thrown away by the system. Used by men too cowardly to dirty their own hands. The boys could barely breathe anymore, blood soaking into dead leaves beneath them. But the man kept talking calmly, almost kindly. Your entire lives. People have mistaken suffering for destiny. He tilted his head slightly. And God? The man laughed softly to himself. God abandoned this city a very long time ago. Lightning flashed through the woods. For 1 second, the boys could have sworn they saw something behind the man. Something massive. Something with horns. Then darkness swallowed it again. You boys have 2 choices. The stranger smiled wider. You can die forgotten in these woods. Or you can become something far more interesting. The man described things impossible for dying boys not to want. Power, money, fear, influence, strength beyond human limits, knowledge that would make powerful men kneel. No more sleeping in alleys, no more begging for scraps, no more watching monsters run the world while you suffer beneath them. The stranger leaned closer. I can make kings out of both of you. Rain continued falling steadily through the trees. The boys barely conscious now, bodies failing, souls slipping. All I ask for in return, the man smiled, is ownership. You belong to me. Your souls, your loyalty, your violence. And through the 2 of you, we are going to build something terrible. Eli started laughing weakly, despite blood running from his mouth. Not because anything felt funny, because the entire moment felt insane. You're the devil or some shit. The stranger's smile widened slightly. Close enough. Malik stared at him silently. Even dying, some instinct inside him knew this thing standing before them wasn't human. Couldn't be. Nothing human should have felt that calm surrounded by death. You need to decide now. The stranger glanced toward the sky almost impatiently. Your hearts are slowing down. Eli coughed painfully, then smirked through broken teeth. Fuck it. I'm in. The stranger slowly turned toward Malik. And you? Malik hesitated, not because he feared hell anymore. Hell had followed them their entire lives already. He looked toward Eli, lying beside him, bleeding into the dirt. His brother, the only person who never abandoned him. If Eli was stepping into darkness, then Malik would walk beside him, like always. Finally, Malik nodded once. The stranger smiled warmly, almost proud. Excellent. Then the man stood slowly to his feet. No refunds. He snapped his fingers, and agony exploded through both boys at once. Bones cracking back into place, bullet wounds sealing shut, blood evaporating from skin. The pain lasted only seconds, but it felt eternal. Then suddenly, silence. The boys gasped violently, pulling air back into lungs that moments earlier had stopped working. Everything felt different, sharper. The rain, the wind, the heartbeat of animals deeper in the woods. They could hear all of it. Eli slowly stood first, looking down at hands no longer shaking. No wounds, no weakness, only strength. Malik rose beside him quietly, and immediately understood something terrifying. Their minds had changed too, thoughts moving faster, instincts sharper, information appearing inside their heads they had never learned before. The stranger already walking back into darkness between the trees. "I'll be in touch," he said calmly. Then he disappeared completely into the woods, like he had never been there at all. The boys stood silently beneath the rain, breathing heavily, feeling power move beneath their skin like electricity. Eli looked toward Malik, slowly smiling for the first time in weeks. "Let's go fuck some shit up." The city thought Malik Cross and Eli Turner died in those woods. Maybe part of them did, because the boys who walked back out weren't the same anymore. Something followed them out of that darkness, something ancient, something hungry. And the worst part? They welcomed it. Jughead thought he buried 2 forgotten teenagers beneath those trees. He had no idea. He just created monsters. This was only the beginning. And in part 2, the city learns what happens when abandoned boys stop fearing consequences. Look out for part 2 of Legacy of Ashes, because revenge is finally coming home.